Trump is back in Florida to face arraignment tomorrow without two of his lead lawyers, Jim Trusty and John Rowley. But Christina Bobb says she's not worried about the indictment because, in her words, the special counsel doesn't seem to understand how the Presidential Record Act works.
And they say this throughout the indictment, but I'll just give one example. Paragraph 4 states that at 12 p.m. on January 20th, 2021, Trump ceased to be president, says a bunch of other things. And then it says, Trump was not authorized to possess or retain those classified documents. That is legally and factually inaccurate. Who has the authority to determine what he's allowed to retain? The president. It's Donald Trump. It's not the Department of Justice. It's not NARA. It's not the archivist. It's the president. So who has the authority to determine whether he's allowed to keep those documents? Donald Trump. So I think the entire indictment is based on a very faulty legal reasoning that seems to blatantly ignore the Presidential Records Act and the only precedent that has already been set for this exact set of facts. So I don't know how they're going to get around that, but it's certainly going to be fun to watch and see what they try to do.
All right, let me bring in my first guest, former New Jersey Superior Court judge and host of the Judging Freedom podcast, Andrew Napolitano. So, is she right?
Well, I think she's partly right and partly not right. She's right with respect to documents that do not contain national defense information. NDI is always and everywhere illegal for anyone to possess outside of a secure federal facility. Donald Trump could not have possessed NDI as the sitting president in Mar-a-Lago. He could only possess it in the White House or some secure federal facility. In terms of classifying and declassifying, there's a dispute as to whether he followed procedure for declassification. I think if he made a good faith effort to declassify, he can declassify just about anything while he's president, as long as it's not NDI. As I said, NDI doesn't matter what the classification is on it. It simply cannot be possessed outside of a secure federal facility. NDI is the document that he supposedly waived. I say supposedly because there's an audio tape of this and not a video, Andrew, at his club in Bedminster, New Jersey. And this is apparently a document prepared for him by the Joint Chiefs of Staff as to how the United States military would invade Iran. This obviously, because it contains military secrets in there, information about the capabilities of the United States military, would be the highest protected document. The government says it doesn't know if he shared it with others, though he is referring to it as if it's right there. So none of this has anything to do with the Presidential Records Act. The Presidential Records Act only covers materials that are not NDI.
Our friends over at Just the News, John Solomon's outfit, have reported that the special counsel, Jack Smith, has been unable to pair that tape with any missing document. And the closest thing to it was a document that was in fact returned to the National Archives, but was also leaked to the press years ago. So that if once it's out in the press, I guess it's no longer NDI, or at least it's not classified or top secret. But if he's just being facetious, if there's no actual document, meaning, there's no actual document that he's referring to, then what?
Well, he's using that's a great question, Andrew. He's using Jack Smith is using a tape of the conversation at Bedminster to demonstrate the former president's understanding that there are certain materials that are unlawful for him to possess because they are secret and because they were never declassified. Now, NDI cannot be declassified by a president or anybody, and it appears that this document is NDI. I have seen the reports that the government can't find it. That means the government leaked it. How else would anybody know that the government can't find it? And the government, of course, particularly the FBI, are the best leakers of information to damage the reputation of a defendant on the planet. So where that document is, I don't know.
Do you think the people who believe Eileen Cannon should recuse herself are going to get their way. Because so far from my reading, especially in the Miami Herald, every legal expert they've interviewed said there's no legal reason for her to recuse herself.
There is no legal reason for her to recuse herself. She issued 3 or 4 rulings in the preliminary stages of this case, all of which were reversed by the United States Court of Appeals. That's not a basis for recusing herself. Recusal is a strange bird. Sometimes you recuse yourself for reasons you don't want to reveal. You just have a bad feeling about the case. You have a bad feeling about the lawyers in the case. You have a bad feeling about the defendant, or if it's a civil case, the plaintiff. You don't have to give a reason for recusing yourself, but compelling her to recuse herself, the government would have to give some compelling reasons, and the rulings she made against him last year, shortly after the FBI executed the search warrant, rulings which were eventually reversed, that is not a basis for recusal. Recusal comes about when there is such a internal bias that it cannot be undone.
I got a little less than 2 minutes. What do you make of the fact that the archivist said that every president since the passage of the Presidential Records Act has basically mishandled or taken classified information? It seems like only Donald Trump is the one being pursued. We have not seen any. Sandy Berger didn't even get real jail time for destroying documents related to the lead up to 9/11. I've got about a minute and a half.
Well, Sandy Berger's behavior was reprehensible, as was that of the prosecutor who negotiated the deal, who was rewarded by George W. Bush with a federal judgeship. Here's what hurt Trump, and I'm now parroting what Bill Barr said to Shannon Bream on Fox News Sunday yesterday. He jerked the government around. He sent them on a wild goose chase. When Joe Biden got caught with this stuff, when Mike Pence got caught with this stuff, they both said, "Come and get it." I didn't even know I had it. Trump went to great lengths to hide it. Trump took 300 documents that were either classified or NDI. He's only charged on 31. The 31 he refused to return. If he had returned all of them, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Wow. Well, I'm going to say it like this. After all the dirty tricks that have been pulled on Donald Trump by the FBI and people like Adam Schiff, if this dog has his day here with a judge who at least won't be corrupt against him, I guess if I was Trump, I'd be happy I wasn't being moved to a D.C. grand jury where he'd have absolutely no chance at a fair trial. How do you think this is going to end? 10 seconds.
I think he's going to be indicted again by a D.C. grand jury for January 6th, and I think the First Amendment is his defense. And I think he's going to be indicted by a state grand jury in Atlanta, Georgia. And that's rolling the dice. I can't even predict how that ends.